Conflict and compromise doesn't always go the way you would like it to. This was the case with the Native Americans' rock art. Native American rock art can be separated into two main groups: petroglyphs, which were carvings in rock, and pictographs, which are paintings upon the rock. They also had many different styles. In this documentary, we will mainly discuss the Lower Pecos River style. Conflict arose when people began to explore and colonize the Americas. After bloody wars and battles, the natives were forgotten stakeholders on most negotiating tables. Sending all of the natives off to Oklahoma was an unfair but final compromise. Native American rock art can be found all over the U.S., but the ones in the Lower Pecos Canyonlands are particularly spectacular. I went to the Woody Museum to learn more. There I found a bounty of information. They also had very detailed projections of the rock art on the walls. The projections were amazing, but I still had to go see all the art for myself. I traveled to the Seminole Canyons near Comstock and Del Rio to see the Fate Bell and White Shaman shelter. There, I learned of an archaeologist named Forrest Kirkland who in 1934 painted and recreated these fragments of history.
Those feet are pointing down the canyon. The wing figure that's here pointing directly underneath, saying possibly being in the middle. Next, again, those feet are pointing down canyon, and then the figure on the end, those feet are pointing up.
Hi, I'm Marina Kinsey, and this is
Tanya Petruni.
And we're at the Seminole Canyon area.
I am a park ranger. I've been here 10 years, and I give the guided only tours to the Fate Bell shelter. We are known for our pictographs, or ancient drawings, that have been radiocarbon dated to be 4,000 years old, and they span for about 1,000 years.
How was the paint that they used created?
It is a mixture of several things. Minerals that were found here, colored stones, ground into very fine powder. Add a little bit of water, a little bit of animal fat as an adhesive, a sticky substance, and also a lot of these plants have a chemical in them called saponin, which is soap.
The Water Treaty of 1944 between Mexico and the U.S. was made to help preserve the waters in the area. The compromise was to make 3 dams on the Rio Grande River. However, only 2 dams were created, one of which being the Amistad Dam.
Was there any controversy about the Amistad? Yes, there absolutely. That was of great concern to a lot of archaeologists, and there really was a lot of debate and a lot of discussion because the reality is that many sites were flooded. Many painting sites are now underwater.
My name is Karen Steelman, and I am the research director at Shumla Archaeological Research Center. I study radiocarbon dating of rock paintings and also the documentation and research of the Lower Pecos paintings that we have here in Texas. The biggest conflict with the pictographs here is that we're really concerned about the preservation of the paintings. There's a consortia of land managers in this area. There is the National Park and there's the State Park, but the majority of sites in the area are on private land. Landowners have actually protected the rock art quite well because they're isolated and they don't get visitors. But there are a lot of environmental concerns that are impacting the art. We get flash flooding in the area, but what happens is because you have the dam on the river, then once all that water gets to the lake, then it starts backing up into the side canyons. Another problem with that is that there are gravels and the silt itself that then gets dropped into this canyon. So it actually elevates the floor of the canyon, sometimes say 10 or 15 feet. And so that means that when the next flood happens, then the water is going to be that much higher. One of the things that Shumla is doing is what we're calling the Alexandria Project, to document as many rock art sites as we can with what we're calling baseline documentation. So this project is a 3-year project as our goal to get all of those sites documented. And so our compromise has been to do a sort of a checklist of certain documentation methods and realize that there are other documentation methods that we might have to do later. Another compromise is working with landowners. Most of the sites here are on private land, and so we have to build those relationships with landowners because we have to understand that there may be a landowner who doesn't want us to be on their land.
I'm in Amistad National Recreational Park in Del Rio, Texas. And here behind me is a picture of the Panther Cave pictograph. Jack Johnson, the archaeologist of the Amistad National Recreational Park, has pointed out that every single figure in this entire mural represents something very specific, almost like the nativity scenes of the Christians. If you could ask the people of this time what each individual was, they would say who it was, and each one would have a story behind it. This was their way of recording their beliefs, their religion, their history, and it's a very rich one.
When they combined all these elements and they produced these images, they were not just pictures. They were, I refer to them as incarnated images. They were living. They believed that as soon as they put them on the wall, that they were alive, and they were active and present in the lives of the people. They were involved in the mythologies and the creation stories and so forth. They were active. So that's really important to understand. They are alive.
In 2013, Ira Flato, host of Science Friday, interviewed Dr. Slovig Turpin, an expert on rock art.
There's also what seems to be a crucifix, but it's not, is it? There.
No, it's not. It's the ascending figure with his arms spread out in that classic pose that seems to denote a religious transformation in many religions outside of this. So when they're showing that, it's the human with his outspread arms.
And now, a discussion with Dr. Carolyn Boyd, founder of Shuma Archaeological Research and Education Center and principal investigator of the Lower Pecos Border Canyonlands Archaeological Project.
Well, they certainly had mastery of astronomy, and we have the same thing in the Lower Pecos. And at the White Shaman mural on the winter solstice, we have a wonderful thing that happens for sunset. The figure that's identified as the White Shaman is actually a lunar deity. And at winter solstice, the lunar deity in a lot of mythology, that's when she loses power, and the power is then taken over by the sun because the days start getting longer after the winter solstice. Well, in the mural at sunset, the sun climbs up the panel up until the point that it reaches the top of this figure, this white shaman figure, the moon, the lunar deity, and at that point the line stops, and essentially the sun decapitates the moon on the winter solstice sunset. It's not just the paintings, it is the context. Everything about it. This painting has so much significance that goes beyond just the symbols themselves. Everything carries meaning. The order in which the paint was applied to the wall, the colors of the paint that were used for the figures, the relationships of the figures on the wall, and the relationships of the figures with the sun and the moon, the direction that they face, the acoustics that are present in this shelter. Everything carries meaning.
Many factors lead to the deterioration of this beautiful art. The raiders of the rock art include humidity from Amistad Reservoir, wind, direct sunlight, vandalism, and even wars. The conflict and compromise relating to this art was a mixed bag. Older treaties had little to no thought of the Native Americans' culture and pushed them all out, leaving nobody to properly protect and restore the pictographs. Amistad Dam submerged hundreds of pictographs, and humidity slowly destroys existing ones, but also allows access to some beautiful cave paintings, provides water for the public, and fishing and boating. Private landowners usually allow documentation, but usually the public cannot visit them. And if we can piece together this ancient mystery, we can protect the oldest recorded history in North America. We have to push along that compromise. We must fight for the pages of our lost history book. We must fight for our past.